Greetings, everyone. Good afternoon. This session here calls each and everyone to recognize their hurts, release their pain, and reclaim their voice. I also have a story of my own. So when I didn't tell anyone at home. So when I started sharing it with the world, I used to get a lot of, "Why you never said anything?" And my answer would be, why would I be saying anything? Would I be saying it because I want a pity party or anything? Because I knew very well that that's not what I was looking for. But I started sharing it because I wanted to help someone else who have won my path. So with that, I just wanna recognize Gail and Angela's strength for coming in and sharing their stories. It's never easy, no matter how many times you've done it, because you are still, the feelings and everything that comes with it are still attached. So from time to time, we will get to experience those. But I'm glad that that today it's not about me, but it's about them. So with that, I would like to invite each and every one of you guys to be part of this conversation, because in as much as we are talking about them, but we are all in our individual corners going through things, and you might find yourselves in their stories and you might need answers from them as to how they navigated those journeys. So I would like to invite you all to be part of this conversation. Hi, ladies.
Hello.
Oh, well done for sharing your stories. Yeah. I think you've shared almost everything, so I will have a question for each and every one of you, and then we'll come to Homos as well. You, Angela, I would like to know, I know that rape is not an easy thing. And when it happens, we always think there's something that I did to make someone do that. Did you at some point feel that you sort of enticed or did something for the perpetrators to get to act that way?
Well, I think I'd always been brought up to know that no is no. And where I was actually made to feel guilty was in the hospital by a female police officer. And she said, "But you were wearing a short skirt." And obviously it starts to plant out in your mind like, okay, maybe I was, but I had my back towards a car. So, I mean, you know, so many things go through your mind where you think, could I have done something differently? Was it, but the plan was already there. You know, it had nothing to do with me. I was just in the wrong place at the wrong time. And, you know, people will try and explain it away and find the innocent guilty for what reason I still can't comprehend. But I have never once blamed myself for being in that position. Thank goodness, because it affects a lot of people very negatively, and could have dire consequences in other women.
No, that is so true. My question for you, Gail, when you were going through what you were going through in your childhood, I'm not sure what to term it, but that excessive menstruation, and I know that, I mean, 4 days, 5 days, it makes you so uncomfortable. I mean, those 4 days are the most uncomfortable days of the month. Now I'm imagining you having to go through it for that long. How did it affect you, and how did it leave you feeling? Because I'm sure you must have worn you must have clothed yourself with some, you felt humiliated because you couldn't be yourself. So I just want to hear from you, how did that affect you and your confidence? as a young girl at that age?
Thank you for the question. Looking back, I'm grateful really to God. My confidence was actually not affected. Interestingly enough, I was tired of going through this. What was affected was my schoolwork. I couldn't study. I was tired, not to get into medical words. Like you don't have, when you have low hemoglobin, or you don't have enough blood in your body, in easy terms, there's not enough oxygen running through your body. So I couldn't do what my friends could do. I couldn't do sports the way everybody else would do. I couldn't just get up and move like anybody else. So that was difficult. But I also had, thankfully, very supportive friends. Like I told you, I had guardian angels around me. Like they knew the situation. I think I was open enough also to share with them what was going on, which is a power, because then they rallied against me. They were like, okay, she needs to be safe. So we will let all the boys walk out of the classroom first, and then we'll stay with her and watch if she's okay. And if she's not okay, we block the door. She needs to change first. So I kind of like got this support system within the classroom, So I had friends that helped me go through that. That helped me for me not to lose confidence in myself. So to the person on the outside, you wouldn't have known what was going on. And when I was in hospital, my parents used to never come visit me during hospital visiting hours because it was full of teens in the room. So they'd always come in the evenings or in the morning. So I'm really grateful that I had, at such a young age, a very strong support system. And that helped me. So my friend never left me behind in whatever they were doing.
Okay, that's great. And I think I'm also going to bring that question back to you, Angela, on how did you deal with the humiliation that you experienced that day when you were left out in the street naked?
Well, I can tell you that happened in 2003, and I only got my confidence back last year.
Wow.
So, yeah.
What did you do to get it back? Did you do anything?
So I think it's very, very important when you decide that you're gonna go on and when I mentioned healing journey, believe me, the first time I heard the word healing journey, I thought, what kind of tree hugger nonsense is this? Until, it arrives at your door and you suddenly realize that this term is actually a real term, and it is quite a journey. But I got an incredible mentor who was actually one of my best friends, who's actually my boss, funny enough. But I found the most confident, bold, strong woman in my life.
Wow.
And I said, I need help. Tell me the honest, raw, dirty truth about what you think. And that becomes almost your accountability partner.
Yeah.
And she looked at me and she said, okay, let's grab a photograph from when you felt your most confident. And I was 16 years old.
Wow.
And I pulled it out and she said, that girl's coming back. And I said, oh, okay, yeah, sure, whatever. You know what I mean?
Yes.
75 kilos later, being able to stand on a stage, albeit a bit shaky today because of the story, but being able to speak in front of people where I couldn't actually even talk in front of two people that I knew without having an anxiety attack.
Yeah.
That is the importance of somebody standing and saying, your excuses are no longer good enough. I can see what is the best version of you, and that's what we're going for.
Wow. That's great. I think I will speak to Homoza now. Okay, I think let's just start with the childhood traumas. Thankfully, Gail did not, in as much as it affected her somehow, but she managed to cope with it to a certain extent, even though it has. Angela only dealt with her confident issues last year. All these years, she was suffering, and I'm sure there must have been instances where that hindered her success and hindered her in any way. How important is it for us to deal with childhood traumas? I think that would be the second question. The first one is, how do we know we even have this? Because we all have issues. We all have gone through things, but someone may think I'm okay, just because we go on day by day. But how do we know that we have underlying issues that are not dealt with?
Thank you for the question and the opportunity to share some insights. There are always triggers if we are present enough for ourselves and those around us to notice. So if you are watching something on television and you find yourself heart racing, getting emotional, getting tearful, the gift to give yourself in that moment is to say, I'm watching this.
Yeah.
Why is it affecting me this way?
Yes.
What's going on here? There will also be clues and cues from those around us who know us, who will tell us something about you has shifted,
Yeah.
which might be how you carry on with your life, how you come across, how you speak, how you walk, or how you've withdrawn from certain things. The elders around us, for those of us that still have them, they notice a lot of things. I can tell you, if I had listened to my grandma, I would have picked up my chronic condition 2 years earlier.
Wow.
So they call a spade a spade.
Yes.
They will say to you, I notice every time you see this happen, you behave this way. Those that are in relationships, our childhood traumas spill over everywhere. They'll spill to our friendships. If we had trauma from our parents, they'll affect how we do relationships.
Yeah.
If we had violent attacks, abuse, they spill into our romantic relationships. So on those bases, it is important to create time and space, not just for ourselves, but for our young ones and families, to deal with what we need to deal with. And that means, among many other things, learning not to have family secrets.
Yes. No, a big yes on that one, because I know that affected me personally, but I will not go there. So, but there are those childhood traumas that dates back as far as when someone was 5-year-old and stuff like that. So how do we know we have those? How does someone know?
So, depending on how the trauma landed in your psyche, in your soul, in your heart, you may not know that that trauma happened for you. There might be other adults around you who know about it, who then have an obligation to craft a healing path for you. It's not just about blabbing out that
Yes.
when so and so was too blah 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 blah, talking to a visiting somebody else, thinking the young one doesn't hear.
Yeah.
How we also know might show up in many other places. It can show up in dreams. It can show up with flashbacks. We've all heard about post-traumatic stress disorder. That's a very common thing. So you will have replays at times. That's another way you will know. I'll pause there for now.
Okay. And then I'll come back to you ladies. So we know that these ordeals, they affected you in so many ways. Gail, you even had miscarriage. In fact, you, Angela, as well. One thing about miscarriage is I don't feel it gets treated the way it is supposed to. You get a miscarriage and everybody's supposed or expects you to move on as if nothing ever happened. How did you guys deal with those things?
Yeah.
Or how,
That's very hard, because what I always say to people is, for me, the word pregnancy ends on that stick that says positive. The moment you've seen that, it's like, oh, pregnant, and then this is a baby.
Yeah.
The pregnancy is that thing there, that blood result. This is a baby that I'm carrying now.
Yes.
So when I lose a child. You know,
Yes.
I went to the doctor, that was 4 years, I think, after having lost twins. I actually took a friend I took the boho, she's in the room. I knew it was going to be a very difficult trip to the hospital, and I knew I needed somebody strong with me, and I needed someone who would not cry with me, because I knew I'd probably weep. And then I checked in the room, like, that one will pray for you, that one will cry with me too, that one will do this. Let's take the one who will most probably not cry in my face. We went for that appointment. One of the questions I had for the doctor is, why does it still hurt so much after so long? So what she told me is, let me tell you what's the difference between the children that you didn't take home and the ones that you have at home. None. When you're pregnant, all your hormones get activated.
Yes.
So you don't love just with your head. Your body learns to love too. You have certain hormones that get activated for you to become motherly, right? So everything gets activated. So your body is ready for this child. Your mind, your soul, your everything is ready for this child. Now you go home without the child. So consciously and subconsciously you're dealing with it, because your body is going through it as well. It's like when you have somebody who gets amputated and they tell you this piece of my foot is hurting. It's not there. It's the same thing that you go through when you have a miscarriage. So we have to respect that.
Yes.
We have to respect the fact that even with an amputee, two different amputees will deal with it differently. The one will accept that my foot is gone, whatever is gone, my toe is gone, and the other one will struggle with it psychologically. But the effect is the same. It's as if you've been amputated. So your body was prepared for this. Your body was prepared to give this love, to nurse this child. You know, some of us have gone through the point where you actually have milk flowing, but there's no baby to take that milk, and it has to be stopped medically.
Yes.
It is so painful. So I think it's important that people start realizing that it's never just another miscarriage. You have to respect what the person has gone through, and you have to respect how it affects them. And it is up to the person to find a way to also rise towards it. I've realized that sometimes people have wrong questions and wrong comments, probably because I've been on the receiving end a lot. And for any of you who will ever encounter somebody like that, never tell them, but you have another child. No.
Yeah.
Can I take one child away from you and tell you that you have another one? Can I take one foot away from you and tell you, but you have another one? So respect the way in which people heal and go through that journey. I think I've said too much.
Yes. Angela, I'm sure you can add something on that as well.
You know, God said that He knew you before He placed you in your mother's womb. Regardless of whether you are growing inside of the womb or still in God's hand, that child is alive, was spoken into being. That spirit is there. And when you lose a child, it doesn't just drop out of you. It doesn't just drop out of you and you go on about your day like you have just thrown away a bottle of milk. Your body continues to let that child go in bits and pieces until your body has somewhat regained its composure, but your mind never does, because that is your child. And it never leaves you. Yeah. It never ever leaves you. And for people to say, oh, well, you know what, you mourn and you let go. There's a difference mourning someone that you know that has passed away and mourning something that has grown inside of your body. So, yeah, I think it has to be treated in a completely different way.
Khomozo, what are some of healthy coping mechanisms for individuals who are dealing with trauma? I think it will be any kind of trauma, because we're dealing with rape and miscarriages. There's a lot that is happening. So what are some of the healthy ways?
Thank you for the question. One of the quickest ways to go through trauma is to lean on, and you've both spoken about leaning on others who have strength in your moment of weakness. So our faith gets challenged, our strength and resilience drops. I love how Gail describes her friends. So all of us need to know, where do I go when I want my prayer warriors? Where do I go when I want someone who's just calm? They don't have a lot to say.
Yeah.
If I need to calm down, I know I'll go there. Or when I need someone to remind me of the beauty that still lives in me, despite what has happened to me.
Yeah.
Angela said it beautifully. We are not what happens to us. We are not our traumas.
Yes.
So it's a lot of hard work. We need practical things. I think Angela spoke about how hard therapy is. So those that are health fanatics and go to gym, they'll tell you without pain, there's no gain. It's the same. So it's about sticking it out, because when you go to each session, there's layers and layers of pain that you have to face, and you come back and you feel like it's too much.
Yeah.
So we've got, luckily in the era where we live, there are many ways of getting support. For those people that in extreme trauma go into phases of being unable to speak at all, you can now get therapists that you text with. For those that do not want to sit face to face, you can say, I want to consult virtually, on Teams, on audio. I don't want to be on camera. And then we've got the classic support structures in our African communities, where you can go elsewhere. You can go to church, you can go to a traditional healer if you are so oriented. You can also go to elders in communities that still believe in elders. We all use common techniques of being fully present, listening without judgment, and slowing things down if we need to. Because in this era, people want, my therapy must be done in 3 sessions, 10 minutes only. That's not how the soul and healing works. And last, I would say we deal with trauma by facing it head on, whatever it is, and naming it. Because if our young ones are violated at school, they go into shock, they come home, they cannot talk. We have to watch their behavior very closely to say, something happened, you're not feeling safe to talk about it here. Where can we take you where it will be safer to talk about it?
I think on that note, that requires parents to be very present. To be very present, guys. You know, when you go to schools, like when you happen to be, or where you are an active parent, you hear teachers complaining a lot about parents who are not present in their kids' life. They will call for meetings, but the parents will not show up. So for as long as we do that, we will not be able to spot those changes on our kids. So we really, really need to be present. And then if guys, there are any questions, you are more than welcome to raise your hands and we'll attend to you. What are some of the significant lessons you guys learned from your journeys?
One of the most important lessons that I have learned is that I am just a human being like anybody else. So I have the ability to succeed.
Yes.
And I can also go through very difficult things.
Yeah.
Because sometimes we look at life and we think that this thing just happens to other people, you know. They got another miscarriage, you know. There was a cousin of mine who lost, I think, like 3 kids. I was still a teenager, and at some point I was actually wondering, does she even feel anything when she loses her kids? I was wondering if she actually loves them. Oh my goodness, I know now that she did. I know she felt something. And I've learned to realize that it doesn't matter what class in society you are in, we all feel things the same way.
Yes.
And we have to respect it.
Yeah.
It's not because somebody, for instance, works for you that they don't have feelings, that they don't have anything, or they don't have a job, they are in the street. You think that they don't feel anything because their child has been taken away from them, or they've lost a loved one. So I've learned to realize that we are all the same and we go through things differently. And another important thing that I've learned is the fact that you do need support, and you have to learn to cry out for support.
Yes.
A lot of times we keep quiet because we are scared of being a burden. I remember talking to one of my sisters when I eventually got to the point of starting to talk about the pain that I was going through because of the miscarriages that I had had. And mind you, I'm having this conversation with my family after I've had 3 children. So everybody thinks I've healed. I mean, you have 3 children now. And the conversation with the doctors like I'm done, but I'm dealing with traumas for days. And now I decided we need to face this head on, and we need to find a psychologist and start talking about this. And I realized that I had not had the conversation with my support system, which was my family.
Yes.
And when you start opening up about it, then you realize, okay, they were actually going through it too, but in a different way. So I have learned that I need to speak up. And people are there actually to help you. Yes, it's true. People have to earn the right to hear your story. Yes. By that, what I mean is you will not just go to anyone, because not everybody is there to support you. But there are people who are there ready to support you, but they don't know how to until you speak up and let them know, I'm not well, I'm struggling here. Then only can they come to the party and help you.
I think the most valuable thing that I learned from this healing process specifically is, and Hannah loves this saying, it is okay to be a little bit broken, but don't be fragile.
I think time is really not on our side, but I also wanted to touch on your story, Gail, on Angela. Sorry, why am I saying?
now.
Yes, how these traumas can actually lead you to an abusive relationship.
100%. You know, your self-worth actually diminishes each time something is taken from you. So whether you are sexually assaulted, or whether something traumatic happens, or you lose somebody in your life relationship-wise, or you're suffering another trauma, you eventually start losing bits and pieces of yourself. And when you get into an abusive relationship, or suddenly realize you're in an abusive relationship, that confidence is so gone that your fight is gone. And you figure, okay, you know what? I'm so used to it now. And you condition yourself to actually think that the person loves you because they've accepted your past trauma. And 7 years in, I'm thinking, you know, now looking back on it, I think, oh gosh, I would have killed the guy. I probably would have landed up like a Lifetime movie in the condition I am now. But for 7 years, it was completely normal for me. It was 100% normal because he told me he loved me.
Yes.
And unhealed trauma can lead you to even deeper trauma in different sections. So it is very important to deal with your stuff, you know.
Can I take a question and then we'll come back to...
Actually, I'm depressed. Why? It's because the questions and your experience are making us to grow more than to be frustrated or to be depressed. This is not a question, however, a feedback or a comment to all the ladies. Let's take care of these young ladies, this young girl. There's nothing that is so disturbing that, like your story, Gail, to say that you were fortunate that you had money to buy pads. Not everyone has got money to buy pads. Not everyone is in a position to buy pads, to buy sanitary towels for that matter. So whatever that you can afford, 12 friends, buy someone some sanitary towel. Buy someone some sanitary towel. And guys, as women in this room, I would say that with both stories, let's take care of each other. When you ask me, don't say, how are you, and just pass. Genuinely ask, how am I? Because look at you, Angela. Only last year that you're starting to be better. What was happening to you all these years?
I was a robot. I was angry. I was combative. I was disrespectful. I was always ready for a fight. You could tell me toilet paper was white and I would literally climb over a table at you.
So I'm saying,
I was not all there all the way.
Yes, let's take care of each other. I'm being so uplifted or want to work harder to do the sanitary pads story. Let's do it. Let's do it, guys. It's very important. You are lucky. Let's do it.
Oh, thank you so much, Mbali. I love that point, and thank you all for sharing your story. Gael, when you shared your story, I just got so emotional because exactly like Mbali said here, there are ladies out there who cannot afford those pads. Now, when you started crawling, showing how you were walking through the wall, I felt angry and so sad because imagine this is somebody's reality right now. And what are we doing? And yes, pads, I don't know if you know, pads at spa only cost 6 rand. So if we all, every time when we are doing our shopping, I do talk about it on my social media. When we are doing our shopping, we just buy 1-2 pads, 12 rand. We go out there are ladies who really, really need our help. We go and give it out there. That's one lady that will be able to go to school. Thank you again so much for sharing the story. Thank you.
Thank you, ladies, for your input. While I take that question, I'll cross over to Khomozo. While we were talking about the abusive relationships, I know we do get into those. How do we know that this is a toxic partner or this is a healed partner?
That's a very tough question. Normally, when we are in toxic or abusive relationships, the following might happen. If we start being isolated from the people we've been close to, we might be part of the ploy of the abuser, trying to keep you isolated so that you cannot see a reason or hear what everyone has to say. If someone is very dodgy and cagey around people that are important to you, there's something there. And if all we could do was listen to those around us when they say, my gut said this, or that behavior doesn't sit well, and face it. But let's face it, there's always the inner wise voice in us that knows love doesn't hurt. It is not meant to hurt, and we know it, right? If it's a different kind of abuse where it's not an intimate relationship, when a child is in the presence of someone that abuses them, they change. They will tell you, whether they are babies or teens or anything, they will get uncomfortable. Even those that have fairy babies. We had a fairy mommy earlier. Our fairy babies will tell us, I don't like so and so. So it's about being honest with ourselves first and listening to people we trust who know what we look like when we are in healthy relationships. I want to touch briefly on what healthy relationships look like. In the time where we live, we've come to confuse healthy relationships with a lot of drama and a lot of living on the stage. And that brings other elements as well. 1 week we are flying to Dubai, the next you buying me a Porsche, what we don't post, I think it was Tepiso who was saying earlier, what we don't post are the things that happen behind the scenes that are really, really scary. Because a toxic relationship will take you on a roller coaster. I love you to the moon today, and tomorrow I will treat you like trash.
Hi, I have a question. So, as a woman who was raised in a house where men are the leaders, we are usually taught that you have to strive to be the perfect wife. And then you go out in the world and you realize that you need your sisters, so you need to make female friends. So my question is, how do we navigate female friendships?
I'm just gonna ask you to clarify. When you're asking how do we navigate female friendship, is your understanding that you cannot have any more female friends because you're married? Gugu, can you just pass the mic on to her?
I think what I'm saying is it's very easy to know what type of wife you're supposed to be, but you don't know how to be a friend because you're not taught that at home.
Yeah. So I will open it up to others, and I think Khomoto will answer probably very well. I don't think friendship really gets taught. You leave a friendship, and it depends on the kind of relationship you had as a child to be able to help you to create healthy friendships as well. So even with the husband that you are going to get or that you have to get to the point first where you are friends before you get married. That a lot of that gets determined in the household when you are raised in the formative years. That's why they call them formative years. So if a child was raised in a household where they were abused, for instance, we understand abuse as part of friendship. If they were loved and cared for, they will understand that a friend is somebody who cares for me and I can be comfortable and safe with them. That is what teaches you to have good and healthy friendship. I'm not sure if there's anything else that teaches you how to have good friendship than the relation that you have, first of all, within your household as a child, because that is really forming that really helps you and forms you as a person, and it helps you as you grow up. But then when you get to the moment where you can make decisions for yourself, it's important that you start assessing those friendships as well. Being a friend doesn't just mean giving all the time, and being a friend doesn't just mean receiving all the time as well. Is there a transaction between the two of you? Like, I can stand here and say, yes, if I need somebody to cry with me, this is the one I have. If I need somebody to pray with me, this is the one I have. But I also have to be that for them, for that relationship to continue. Otherwise, you start draining those people and they don't want you as a friend anymore.
Sorry.
So I think you need to define what's an acquaintance and what's a friend. So as Gail was saying, if it's a mutually beneficial relationship where you know that if you need something, the person's there. If they need something, they know you're there. If they are not supporting you in your good times and your bad times and are not transparent enough to say to you, listen, I think that's right, or that, you know what, maybe you just need to watch out for that. That's not your friend. That's an acquaintance. The person that you can honestly call a friend is somebody that will have you at your best and your worst and love you anyway.
Okay. I will take the questions. I've noted the hands.
Thank you so much for such an important topic, and you ladies for bearing your hearts and souls to us. I would like to take you a little bit back, Angela, to the 7 years. GBV is such a serious issue in this day and age. Where I stand, I want you to help us as people who will be seeing what's going on in those 7 years from outside, be it your family, your sisters, your friends, your parents. How would you have wanted to be supported? Because I feel like a lot of us, we are ill-equipped in terms of how to support people who are going through, those kind of traumatic relationships. And like you are saying, it's not easy to just say, get out of the relationship. How do you have wanted to be supported?
So I'm actually in that scenario right now. One of my closest friends who I work with called me last year at 1:00 in the morning, please come and get me. When I got to her house, her boyfriend had beat her up. So aside from the protective part kicking in where you're like, I just want to kick down this door and go and deal with the guy, I thought, okay, logically, I remember that it didn't matter how many people had told me, this is not good for you, this is not okay. No, but he's not a bad person and I love him. And I'm in that situation with this friend where I actually stay with her 3 nights a week in her home to keep her from running back consistently. I find that if I say to her, you know what, this is not okay. And she says, yes, I know. But I don't know. I want to be a mother still. And what if nobody else wants to marry me? And stuff like that. And to be completely honest, and please forgive me, God, this guy's really not a winner. But she is so capable of so much more. But what I have to do is love her through it until the point where she realizes, because for me, it was that sudden drop of this man is going to kill me. Because once it becomes acceptable one time, it's going to be acceptable every single time. He's not going to change overnight. So, I mean, it's now 6 months of me loving her through it, and I can see she's getting stronger. Because when he walks in and he starts going at her, he instantly, from the minute he comes through the door, is degrading her over anything, whether she put down a Checkers packet wrong on the table or whether she talks about something on the news, he always has to be right. And him and I sat talking, and I actually asked him, you do know that what you did to her is not okay. And he could describe to me in detail how he had hit her with absolutely no feeling whatsoever. And to see that kind of evil sitting across from you and knowing that this poor girl is going to take a while to get out of this. She refuses to go to therapy. She refuses to go and see someone. And I am that one lifeline to her saying, you are better than this. You deserve more than this. This is not okay. And the more times you hear it, the more times it sinks in. And he must know that I'm aware. And he must know that he will not be able to attempt that again without me coming after him. And I've told him that. I was like, you will disappear off the face of this planet if you try that again with her.
So just a second. Okay, yes. I just want to say something to Homos while we're on the point of having a support system. So one of the reasons, I think earlier I did mention that I did not tell anyone, it's because sometimes we don't have a safe space. Even the parents do not create enough safe space for the kids to come and unpack whatever that needs to be. What can parents do to create a safe space for their kids, for their children? We have little girls being raped but you find that it becomes so difficult for them to come and tell their parents. So what can we do as parents to create that space?
So you've probably heard this saying before, where we are encouraged to dig a well before we need it. It's the same with our little ones. For them to come and tell us, I'm being bullied, I'm being excluded, I'm being abused, we need a very solid foundation. So that takes us back to our family practices of making time. You mentioned it earlier, Dudu, of being present for ourselves and our young ones. Even if it means compulsory family dinner time, however many times you want it to be. Because we know from research that in homes where families sit around and have at least one meal a day, it's not practical for everyone. Our children learn to reflect on their days, give us more than, how was your day? Fine. Fine is never fine. We all know that, right? So we then engage them in simple questions like, which part of your day was interesting? Which part was surprising? Which part was hard? What do you think about this in the news? Because they also go through a lot of trauma. We've seen school shootings, we've seen anything you can think of. They have nowhere to debrief, to discuss those things. So those are some of the ways we start building it. But another simple technique that I want to challenge all of us that are here to start doing. In corporate settings, we do what we call coaching circles. They are more like support groups. We all arrive there as peers. And we talk about anything under the sun. That doesn't have to be long. It doesn't have to be run by a qualified therapist all the time. It can be a group of people that gather at specific times, and whoever shows up on that day was meant to be there on that day. It's flexible, it's fluid, it's not mandatory, and you hold a safe space. Obviously, you need rules around how to hold confidentiality in those spaces. You need to learn what gets discussed there stays there, and we don't repeat one another's stories in absence of others.
Good afternoon. My name is Lungile. I am just absorbing the energy of understanding the woman character. And in doing so, I also understand how complex it is being a woman in the world, in a community, in a group, and even within yourself. But also what I'm trying to establish is how can women better collaborate together in ensuring that the legacy of women in all sectors, in the country, in a home, in a community, remains central. That women, remember, being a woman also, we have our own social ills amongst women that are not being addressed within spaces, that we tend to forget that we are the problem as well in our societies and also in our homes. So how can we bring in mechanisms that can better facilitate that women can understand the dialogical relationship that we need to have amongst ourselves and start sorting out our issues, woman to woman, because it is that mother-in-law that hates another woman. It is a relative sister that has a problem with me succeeding. So we have other hidden agendas amongst women that we are not trying to deal with, and then we somehow try to maybe look on the other side of the story and maybe the other gender. But us being women, being females, being mothers, there are so many underlying issues that we have to talk about in ensuring that we are in a good state of mind, in ensuring that we can better facilitate and celebrate and embrace one another.
Thank you so much for such a powerful question. It's question, comment all together. You know, one of the things that the reality that we have to face is the fact that people are who they are. There's only one person you can change on the face of earth, and it's yourself. You will never be able to change anybody else. So if we really want change, it has to start with ourselves as people. So you need to look at yourself and look at what is it that you wish that other people would be able to do for you, and start doing it. You know, I can tell you, for instance, when I was dealing with the stigma when I didn't want to go to the gynecologist, it's because the waiting room was full with other women who were looking at me funny. And this could have been my mom sitting there. And that was very scary for me. And they would ask you if your parent wasn't there. Like, I was very scared. I told my mom I would never be able to go there by myself. They're like, why are you here? What did you do? I am just sick. Now, all of a sudden, I don't want to go to the doctor because the waiting room is full of women who are at the age of being my mom sometimes, but are judging me. So what can I do in return? Obviously, I cannot go and preach to the whole world and say, don't do that. But what I can do is realize that when I'm sitting in that waiting room and I see a child in that waiting room, something is probably wrong and it's none of my business. If I can be there to support, then I can support her. Otherwise, I must just leave her alone. I think all the change that we look for in the world, we have to realize the fact that it has to start with us. And those that will be able to see from us will hopefully continue with what we do. Trying to change everybody is like we've already failed before we even start. But trying to change ourselves, that is where we can succeed.
So I think from what I've seen, a lot of development coming in now after the elections and all of those types of things is women are banding together more and more for certain causes. And obviously more of the like women's events, if you go to a women's event, take a friend with you, take 2 friends with you, go and meet 2 additional women, start expanding your areas of where women are meeting under the same common cause. And when women band together, the thing is you can't really tear us apart if we're all united under the same umbrella. So I think, small baby steps, because nothing is solved overnight, but nothing is unfixable.
This is the last question or comment, guys, so that I can release you now.
I wanted to respond to Mama and say, when we talk about healing traumas, some of them are systemic, family, and multi-generational. So you are so right. We have to make time to face what we need to face. If we've got mom and daughter-in-law dynamics, we probably brought that from somewhere before. We brought it either from the movies or previous generations. It's up to us to bring it into today and look at how we break that cycle. And I also think we have the responsibility to say no to certain narratives about us as women. If we keep on saying we don't support each other, blah, 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 we are feeding it unconsciously.
I'm just going to take the last 2 and then...
Okay, good afternoon. I would just like to know and find out, there are 2 people, like mainly on the top of my head, that they're from praying families, strong families, well-off families that can pay for therapy and so forth for them, but they are not, like, you can see that they need help. Like, we know their stories, we know they come from abusive relationships and one is divorced, but they feel like they're okay, they don't need help. But we all know that you need help. How do you help someone who's reluctant to wanting help? Like, how do we find ourselves to actually finding them help or getting to be able to help them? Because it's a real struggle.
Thank you for the question, ma'am. I think human beings are very complicated. We all know that. And when we're not well and everyone around us keeps on saying, you must leave, you must do this, you must go see someone, it can get overwhelming and disempowering, actually. Because if we go from the premise that says, within all of us, we've got the wisdom and all the resources we need to know when something is not working, then we can go about challenging that person indirectly. So, like Angela says, if you invite someone like that along to other places where they may not hear you, but they may hear the same message from somebody else, They may hear it in our youngsters' poem and not from you. They may not want preaching or anything. I know and I've seen that over time, all of us get to a place where we say, enough, but only in our own time. The least we can do is love them in the meantime, be non-judgmental, be mindful of the jokes we make and the comments we make. Because if my friends have so much to say about what they see in the media and I'm sitting here, there's no way I'm gonna open up to them.
I think consistency is key, as long as it takes, to be honest with you, because the chances that when they are ready to leave, you are going to be the person that helps get them out of there. So it's that consistency, and I know we want to fix it overnight and we want to protect them, and and believe me, coming from praying families means absolutely nothing anymore. Most praying families are quite disjointed at this moment, at least in one part or another. So, Jesus is coming, girl.
Hi. So I just have 2 questions. So my first question is, you learn to be a wife, but how do you do if you are a broken wife? Because you lost so many children and you still have to carry on with your life and your partner, even though sometimes you don't love yourself and you don't want to continue. And second question is, sometimes it's better to be sad when you are alone in your sadness, but now you have to share it with your partner. So at some point, don't you hide your sorrow and pain because you feel like he will not understand because he's a man? Not in a bad way, but it doesn't feel the same as we did because we carried the baby. Yeah.
That's such an important point. It's true that it's very difficult for you to be a good wife when you are broken. The reality is you are going to have to take a moment and pause and face the fact that you are broken. I'm talking from personal experience where I had to face the reality that if I did not fix myself, I was going to damage my marriage. Because a broken person cannot build a strong marriage. So you now have to face your fears, face your realities head on. I did certain things that were very difficult, such as going back to the hospital where I felt like I had buried a part of myself. That was a very difficult step to take because I had decided not even to drive past that hospital anymore. I would try and even, if I had to drive that way, I would find different roads so that I wouldn't go past there. But the reason why I was so scared was because something big had happened there. I had to take myself to the point where I went to face what had happened. I had to take myself to the point where I faced the reality of this is really hard and I don't know what to do with myself now and I need to now to talk to my family. It's an African family. It's an African church and we don't talk about these things. I spoke about those things openly. There's no one who is close to me who was spared from dealing with the reality that I'm not fine. I said it the way it was. Are you good? I'm like, no, I'm not. I'm not well as a person now, and if we don't talk about what is going on, I'm not gonna be fine. So yes, I was a broken wife in that moment, and I couldn't have been in a strong marriage unless I dealt with myself. So you have to sometimes face that reality and deal with that reality. So I had to have that conversation. I had the conversation with my siblings, every single one of them. I'm like, we need to talk about this. I had so many miscarriages. I did not hear your voice. Where were you? It was a shock for every single one of them. Like, after this long? I'm like, yes, I did not hear you. Where were you in that moment? Then some of them would say, I asked you how you were doing and you said, I'm fine. And I'm like, and you trusted me and you just left me because I said I'm fine. And I also got to realize, so it was not a blame game, but I also got to realize how they dealt with it because none of them was prepared. They didn't come with a book telling them your sister's gonna go through so many miscarriages and this is what's going to happen. So they're all dealing with it in the moment. Your husband will not be prepared. He's here, my husband in the room. And I'm sure that was very hard for him to deal with too, because he's dealing with it on his own, in his own way. So there's two sides of the story. You have dealt with it on your own as a woman. He's dealing with it too. He's lost too. And then you have to deal with it as a couple. So there comes a moment where you have to allow yourself to be a person. Before you were a wife, God created you a person, a human being. So you need to fix yourself first, then only you can fix everything else that works around you. You know, for those of you who have taken a plane before, what do they say when there's loss of oxygen on the plane? Put the mask on yourself first, then only you can put the mask on others. So you have to get to the point where you put the mask on yourself. They won't die. My family is here. They didn't die from the fact that I actually in that moment put the mask on myself. I had to take time where I actually went on personal retreats on my own. I left babies with my sisters. I'm like, I love every single one of you. Right now, I need to find me as a person. And my sisters and husbands and whoever else was around had to deal with all the other things of my life. I had very strong staff members, team members. Tato, thank you very much for looking after the business while I was trying to fix myself. So you create a system for you to become a strong human being again. Then only can everything else around you work. I hope I've answered your question.
Thank you so much, ladies. I think we're gonna wrap it there. Thank you so much.
And many more powerful South African women. How many more names come to my mind? The women are the powerful force which we should always remember. Insipate, Musadi Utwarati Bagabuhali. I wish I was a magician so that whenever there's crisis, I'll just say, women and mothers of Africa, break the silence. The power of women that strike the strength of our men. Women are so strong that even when they cry, tears don't last for so long. Women, mothers and wives, break the silence. Only a few people know remarkable women who have full impact in the African politics. We all must admire women for their contribution and standing commitment. Remember the role of the women in the struggle for democracy in South Africa and to honor the role that women played in the society. And this is why I say, Watinda Mina, Watindi Bogon, Watinda Tina, Watinda Baba. You strike the women, you strike the rock. It is a day to celebrate. It is a day to think for all that the world understand. So the charming color pink. Bagai women, we demand Gisela Mandela. Bagai women, Charlotte Makaike. Bagai women, Lilian Goy. Bagai women, Alessina Sisulu. They blocked her. They chased her a day. But she was not afraid. Everything else did say. Hey! Unarmed women with self-arrested courage, they took to cry. They turned her life to hell and forced her to die. But let me say a word full of hope. She made her way out and learned how to cope. A woman, a mother, a wife, with patience she strives, carrying, bearing and working, still struggling with God. The power of women is immense. The reminder of the contribution made by women, the strength that made them march to the union buildings. They are like a river that flows, and all those who are thirsty can drink. They drink knowledge, perseverance. They drink motherhood. They are like nature. They give expecting nothing in return. I was there leading the matter with Mama Dorothy, where every attack has been controlled and told, and we were ready to take an aggressive action. I was there to fight against women oppression and to say yes to women empowerment. I said, enough is enough. We cannot be controlled. We cannot be told, and we cannot be disadvantaged. But what? Wait! What happened to freedom? No! I was there. I said, go Mama, go me. The time has finally came that we break the silence and that we say, what's best for our black land? I was there with the women of South Africa on 9 August 1956. We signed a petition. We signed a petition and took it to straight up, and we knocked at room 104. Boom, 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 and said, enough is enough. Hands on our backs of the pants. We have had enough of your demands, enough of your commands, and enough of your unfair laws. You have threatened us and killed us, but today we are here to say, enough is enough. It is our time to talk. It is our time to show you who we really are. So be Teresa Williams to pray. Women emancipation has not become a reality yet. There's been all sorts of good things that have come to the women because of what we have started and because of what the women before us started. I, Winnie Madikizela Mandela, I am the product of the masses of my country and the product of my enemy. I am the product of the masses of my country and the product of my enemy. Product of my enemy, the product of the masses of my country and the product of my enemy. Product of my enemy, the product of the masses of my country and the product of my enemy. Under their trousers. If they do not want to act, let us women exchange garments with them. I, look my body. We are here not because the men say so, or not because somebody has done us a favor, but because we're there with us and we have to fight for freedom. I, Charlotte Maho Mumanyama Kleke. I, Charlotte Maho Mumanyama Kleke. This work is not for yourself. This work is not for yourself. Kill that spiritual self and do not live above your people. Kill that spiritual self and do not live above your people. But live with them. But live with them. And if you can rise, bring someone with you. And if you